Good morning, dear students. Today, let us continue with this short story, A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan. We had in the previous video stopped at page 62 at a point of time in the story when the foreigner had taken advantage of Muni's silence for some time, when Muni was thinking, reflecting, enjoying that vision of the Kali Yuga ending, Lord Vishnu coming in the form of Kalki. This particular horse would come alive, trample, kill all the bad ones and carry all the good ones on its back, save them, take care of them, reward them, and start this new epoch, this time period in the history of mankind. Epoch is a time period in the history of our existence. He would start this Satya Yoga. He was thinking of all that and he was enjoying that vision. When the foreigner tried to explain how he would carry that horse safely back to his country, have it installed and kept in their living room, removing all the books that had piled up to the height of that horse statue, he would have all those books removed, discarded, the bookshelves and the cases discarded, removed, placing the horse in place of them and keeping it safely. So, gentlemen, he said that his wife would not agree with his idea of having the horse in place of the books, but he would somehow convince her. That is where we had stopped, gentlemen. We are at page 62 going on to page 63. So Muni continued with his description of the end of the world, doomsday, the end of the world. He was still brooding, he was doing nothing except thinking about how this world would come to an end according to what he had heard from the Puranas, from the holy Hindu texts or scriptures. Our Pandit, he said, the temple priest in his village, our Pandit discoursed, please underline the word discourse. In this case, discoursed, meaning how he had explained in detail at the temple. In this context, the priest had explained what the understanding and the belief on how the Kali Yuga would end. This epoch of lawlessness, this time period of lawlessness, immorality, sin, destruction and darkness would end. What did he say? Our Pandit discoursed. He argued and explained in detail. He explained in detail, again explained in detail the entire reference of this end of the Kali Yuga. At the temple, once how the oceans, and he said, the Pandit, the village priest, the temple priest had said how everything would be covered by huge waves rising from the oceans. It would cover all parts of the earth and swallow us. This horse would then, it was believed that it would grow larger and larger and bigger, come alive, bigger than the highest waves, and carry on its back all the good people and kick into the flood waters the evil ones, killing them, plenty of them about. And he said there were plenty of bad people according to him. He said reflectively means thinking about it, very seriously thinking about it. Do you know when it is going to happen, he asked. And he asked the foreigner, did he have any idea when this doomsday would occur, happen? When would the end of the world take place? When would the end of Kali Yuga take place? The foreigner now understood by the tone of the other that a question was being asked and said. He understood that Muni was trying to ask him a question by the way he spoke, the tone in which he had spoken. So the foreigner went on to speak and say, I am not a millionaire. He said that he wasn't a very rich man, but a very simple, modest means a very simple, in this case modest meaning, gentlemen, M-O-D-E-S-T, modest, M-O-D-E-S-T, modest in this context, a very simple person or businessman. Or a businessman, he said he was. He wasn't a very rich man. My trade is coffee. And he went on to explain what did he do for a living. And he said that he traded in coffee. Amidst all this wilderness of obscure sound, Muni caught the word coffee. Now, amid all this confusion, these sounds, the explanation that they were trying to give each other, which none of them understood, it was all mere simple sounds for each other. So, in this wilderness means in this wild exchange of words which none of them understood. Wild exchange. Wilderness means wild, rapid exchange of words between them which no one understood. Obscure means unclear to each. Very unclear. No one understood each other. Obscure, unclear. Unclear. Muni caught one single word, and that word was coffee, which the foreigner had uttered or said, and said immediately, if you want to drink kapi, in his tongue, in the way he pronounced the word, he said kapi. Drive further up, he indicated that he go a little further, and in the next town, he said, they have Friday market, and there they open kapi hotels. So I learned from passers-by. And so he said, he hadn't been there, he meant to say, but he had heard from people that there in the next town, where there used to be this weekly market, the Friday market, there you would get coffee, because people, traders, petty small businessmen had started coffee or cafes, cafeterias, and there he would get good coffee to drink. And he had come to know about this Friday weekly market from passers-by. Passers-by meaning those people who used to travel by that road. The foreigner said, I repeat, I am not a millionaire. Ours is is a modest business, a simple, small business, he went on to say. After all, we can't afford to buy more than 60 minutes on TV time in a month, which works out to 2 minutes a day. That's all. Although in the course of time, we'll maybe sponsor a 1 hour show regularly if our sales graph continues to go up. So he began to explain the condition of his business and his trade that he was engaged in back in USA. And he said that his business wasn't a very big business. It was a small business, a modest business. And how did he go on to explain that he wasn't a big businessman? He said that he could not pay for to buy more than 60 minutes of advertisements advertising his product on television. This proves that he was a small businessman because he couldn't pay for advertising his goods on TV more than 60 minutes in a month. And he said that 60 minutes in a month meant that he would get only 2 minutes every day to show his product on television in the form of advertisement. That's all he said. Although he said he had this hope, although he said maybe he said he and his partners, his associates would spend on having a 1 hour show on television on a regular basis if their sales of the product which they dealt in would go up. If their sales would go up, they would certainly sponsor an hour show regularly on a regular basis on television if they earned more, and that was the hope, he said. So he explained that he wasn't a big businessman with a lot of money, and he hoped that one day he would be able to sponsor an hour show regularly on television, which would help in increasing the sale of his product, the coffee which he sold. Then the visitor, feeling that he had spent too much time already, said, "Tell me, will you accept 100 rupees or not for the horse? I'd love to take the whiskered soldier also, but no space for him this year. I'll have to cancel my air ticket and take a boat home, I suppose. Ruth can go by air if she likes, but I will go with the horse and keep him in my cabin all the way if necessary." What did the foreigner mean to say? The foreigner realized that he had already spent a lot of time with this man, trying to convince him to sell the horse statue to him. Realizing that fact, he went on to tell Muni whether he was ready to accept the 100 rupees that he was offering in order to buy the horse statue from him. And he said that he would have loved to take the statue of the soldier as well with the horse statue, but he said there wasn't enough place in his home to install and keep the statue of the soldier which stood beside the statue of the horse. And he said that he would take it sometime later when he would revisit India, particularly that place of that region outside the village of Kritam. And he said if he were to take the horse statue with him, he would have to cancel his flight ticket. Instead, he would go by ship. And that is what he said he was planning to do. He said his wife, Ruth, would go by air if she would want to do so. But he had decided that he would go by ship and keep the horse statue inside his cabin all the while during his voyage, during his travel, to make sure that it would not get damaged, take good care of it. And if that would be the case, if it would be necessary to keep the horse statue with him in his cabin while he would be traveling, he would do so. And he smiled at the picture of himself voyaging across the seas, hugging this horse. And while he was trying to tell Muni how he intended, how he wanted to carry this horse statue inside his cabin while he would be traveling back to US by water, he began to imagine, as Muni had been imagining earlier, referring to the history of that horse, referring to the Hindu mythology regarding the Kali Yoga and the Sakti Yoga, all these things. This foreigner also began to imagine himself traveling in a ship in his cabin with this horse statue and hugging the horse statue. How happy he would be. He added, I will have to pad it with straw so that it doesn't break. And he realized that he needed to have it cushioned very nicely, pad it with straw, cover it all up so that it would not get damaged. I have my station wagon, as you see, and he pointed out to the car he had, this vehicle he was driving, which had come to a sudden halt, and he was distressed. He had then approached Muni to know whether there was a gas station anywhere near, and that is how the conversation had started. So he told Muni that his car was standing there, and it was a station wagon, a big car, a combination of a truck and a car. And he said that I can push the seat back. He would make space for the horse to be put there so that he could carry it away. The horse, meaning to say the horse statue. I can push the seat back and take the horse if you will just lend me a hand, if you would help him to carry off the horse from the platform and get it into his car. Lend me a hand, he said. He requested him to kindly give him a hand, help him to carry the horse statue from the platform to his vehicle and put it inside his station wagon. Lend me a hand and I can lift off the horse from its pedestal, from its platform, after picking out the cement at the joints, after breaking off the cement that had it fastened, held to the platform, removing it and then getting it and carrying it away. He asked Muni to help him. We can do anything if we have a basis of understanding. And he went on to say that everything could be solved. All problems had a solution. Only if people knew or had the right knowledge to go about solving their problems. If only people had the right understanding, they could easily solve problems, according to this foreigner. He had told Muni. So he said that he would break off all the cement that had held the horse to the platform and then carry it away with his help. At this stage, the mutual mystification was complete. This mystification here, mystification, mystification in this context, in this context of the story, is confusion. Is Confusion which was due to the inability of both understanding their languages. So, mystification, mystification. This mutual means from both ends. This mutual means they were both confused. So, this confusion was complete and there was no need even to carry on a guessing game at the meaning of the words, and there was no need for them now to try and understand and guess what each was trying to tell the other. The old man chattered away in a spirit of balancing off the credits and debits of conversational exchange. Now, Muni here, now this is the beauty of the language that this writer R.K. Narayan had used to express his happiness while writing this story. And he said, the old man Muni chattered away in a spirit of balancing of the credits and debits of conversational exchange, and said in order to be on the credit side, "Oh, honorable one, I hope God has blessed you with numerous progeny." So, I say this because you seem to be a good man, willing to stay beside an old man and talk to him, while all day I have none to talk to except when somebody stops by to ask for a piece of tobacco. So he said that this old man, he began to, in his mind, before he spoke, he was filled with this happiness, this spirit, and he began to speak soon after. And he was in his mind trying to balance the credits and the debits of conversational exchange. The credits, how much he had spoken and how much the foreigner had spoken, and whether they were on equal ground, whether they were equal in terms of the time they had spoken for. He tried to balance all that, what they had spoken to each other, conversational exchange, what they had talked about to each other. So he needed himself to be as good as the foreigner in having spoken or taking enough time to express himself. And he tried to, and said in order to be on the credit side, to be on a level with the foreigner in terms of how long they had spoken to each other, to match each other, he tried to carry on speaking and said, "Oh, honorable one, I hope God has blessed you with many children," progeny. Again, we come across this word, progeny. Progeny means children. He assumed that the foreigner must be blessed by God with a lot of children. "Oh, honorable one, I hope God has blessed you with numerous progeny. I say this because you seem to be a good man." And he said that he was saying so because to him, he thought that the foreigner was a good human being, a good man, who was willing to sit beside him and talk to him when nobody usually stopped by to talk to him, except for some people who would stop by and ask him for tobacco. Tobacco means, in Hindi we say the chewing tobacco that people take. So beside an old man and talk to him, while all day I have none to talk to except when somebody stops by to ask for a piece of tobacco. But I seldom have it. But he said he rarely had tobacco with him. He would rarely carry had tobacco with him. Seldom means he rarely had. He in fact never did have any of it because he couldn't afford it. Tobacco is not what is used to be at one time, and he said tobacco was not any more as cheap as it used to be in the past. And I have given up chewing it. And he said that he had given up on this habit of chewing tobacco. I cannot afford it. And there you are, he said that he was too poor to afford, spend on tobacco and upkeep this habit. So he said that he had given up on this bad habit of chewing tobacco. Nowadays, nothing the other's interest in his speech, Muni felt encouraged to ask. Noting the other's interest in his speech, Muni felt encouraged to ask. And he observed that the foreigner was listening to him very carefully. And he was encouraged, noting So, noting that the other man was very interested in what he was saying, he felt very motivated and encouraged and asked, "How many children have you?" He asked, "How many children did the foreigner have? Did that man have?" With appropriate gestures, using his hands to explain what he was trying to ask, with his hands, realizing that a question was being asked by Muni, the foreigner, the red man replied, "I said 100, trying to indicate to Muni that he was willing to offer him 100 for that horse statue, which encouraged Muni to go into details, which when Muni heard him say what he had said, he felt a little more encouraged and he went on to speak. "How many of your children are boys?" So Muni understood that he had 100 children, which the foreigner actually did not mean. He was meaning to offer 100 rupees to buy the statue from him. How many, Muni asked, how many were boys and how many were girls? "Where are they? Is your daughter married?" he questioned. "Is it difficult to find a son-in-law in your country also?" He was questioning all that. How many daughters, how many sons, and where was his daughter? Was she married or not? And was it difficult to find a man to get his daughter married to? Was it as difficult as in India to find a good son-in-law? In answer to these questions, the red man dashed his hand into his pocket. He put his hand quickly into his pocket and brought forth. Brought forth means he brought out his wallet in order to take immediate advantage of the bearish, please underline the word bearish, B-E-A-R-I-S-H, bearish, meaning this cheap deal, this falling price, of the good, and the item or thing to be sold here was the horse statue. So he took advantage of this. He thought Muni was talking about the horse and he was ready to sell the horse statue. So he took advantage of this bearish, this falling cheap price, this cheap deal, and he took out his wallet. Bearish trend in the market, this falling price, this falling trend in the market, he took advantage of that, and thinking that Muni was ready to sell the horse statue, he flourished, he brought out a note, a 100 rupee note, currency note, and said, "Well, this is what I meant," and he tried to explain that is what he was trying to offer to Muni to buy the horse statue from him. The old man now realized that some financial element was entering their talk. So the old man, looking at the note, he realized that there was some kind of money or currency that had entered into their conversation. And he didn't quite understand what was happening. He peered closely. He looked, peered, P-E-E-R-E-D. P-E-E-R-E-D. Peered means looked carefully. He looked very carefully at this note, this currency note, the like of which he had never seen in his life. The one kind that he had never seen before in his life. He knew the 5 rupee note because he was a poor man. He knew the 10 rupee note and their colors. He could easily identify them, but he hadn't seen this big denomination, this big note, 100 rupee note. Although always in other people's hand, he had seen this 5 rupee notes, these 10 rupee notes with other people. He didn't have much of them to handle. While his own earning at any time was in copper and nickels, while he was such a poor man that he wouldn't earn in notes, he would earn in coins, in very cheap value coins, and those coins were copper and nickel. Nickel was a very small value holding coin, a small denomination. Denomination means the value of the coin was very low. His income was very small in copper and nickel coins, not those big notes, 5 and 10 rupee notes which he used to see being carried by others. What was this man flourishing the note for? Perhaps asking for change, he thought. Why was he showing him the note? Probably he was asking him for the change for 100 rupees. He laughed to himself at the idea, notion. Notion means idea. He laughed at himself at the idea of anybody coming that way to ask him for this big change. Him for changing 1,000 or 10,000 rupee note. So to him he thought it was a big amount, more than 100 rupees. He didn't know that it was 100 rupees. So he thought it was a 1,000 rupee note or a 10,000 rupee note, and here this man was asking this for change. So he laughed at him at this idea of somebody coming along and asking him for change for such a big amount. He said with a grin, he smiled, showing his teeth. Grin means to smile, showing one's teeth, exposing one's teeth. Ask our village headman, who is also a money lender. He can change even 1,00,000 rupees in gold, sovereigns, if you prefer it that way. He thinks nobody knows, but dig the floor of his puja room and your head will reel at the sight of the hoard. Till there, gentlemen, the last few lines that I have just read, I will continue in the next video. So we end here. Muni laughed at this whole idea of somebody coming along and asking him for change of such a big value note, as the foreigner was showing him. He didn't know what the value of that note was, whether it was 1,000 or whether it was a 10,000. In actuality, it was just a 100 rupee note. But to Muni, being so poor, it was a bigger amount. And somebody coming along to ask him for change, it seemed very funny to him. We will continue in the next video. Kindly refer to it and learn from it. Thank you, gentlemen.